It's a person that I met in my late 20s in 1993, and it was such a profound meeting for me. I felt for the first time in my life met at the level of the soul when he looked deeply into my eyes. Glastonbury, which is considered esoterically and spiritually as the heart chakra of the earth. I don't even understand how I got here, but I did. 1994, with 2 bags of white clothes, 2 children, a car that somebody lent me, and I've been here since. Even my parents moved here. I have to smile because a big part of my training is to never be attached to a possession. It's a cosmic knot, and it's very, very sacred, and people will see that theme running through my life.
Hello and welcome back to These Three Things, the podcast that asks which person, place, and treasured possession have made a profound impact upon your life and why. My guest today is Rita Hraiz, a grandmother from Glastonbury. She has been a respected student of Ageless Wisdom, solar philosophy, shamanism, and esoteric psychology for the past 30 years. For the last 17 years, she has held Dharmakaya retreats internationally, bringing these ancient teachings to sacred lands. Her circle provides a sanctuary, offering many the opportunity to truly anchor into their own divinity. With her profound understanding of White Tantra, the science of Kundalini, Mahamudra, and the Dharmakaya, Rita inspires individuals to access their own intuitive body wisdom. Her ultimate passion is to uplift and serve humanity by creating a strong, clear, sacred space that supports a conscious shamanic journey home into the heart, softened by the immensity of our great mother's mystery. I have studied under Rita for 9 years now, having had a deep calling for personal transformation following the death of my beloved grandfather in 2015. Steadily, I have deepened my connection to spirit and to Mother Nature, and can vouch that this path and these teachings have helped me heal in the most profound ways. It is an honor for me to have my teacher here today on These Three Things. Thank you, Rita, for being a guest. A very warm welcome. Let me start by asking what I ask of all the guests. How easy was it for you to choose your list?
As you can imagine, I've got so many beautiful friends and people that have touched my heart deeply, but it wasn't difficult because there is absolutely no comparison to the impact that the person that I have chosen to talk about, um, and why this was such a profound influence on my life. There's literally no comparison to somebody else ever for me.
Okay, so why don't we start there? I would love for you to tell us about this person that you've chosen and why.
Okay, well, it's a person that I met in my late 20s in 1993, so I'm 61 now. And I was at a very deep, heavy, painful part of my life. I would go as far as to say a definite dark night of the soul, and prior to what I consider having woken up. Um, and yeah, I was in grief and felt that I had lost myself. In fact, I felt like I was at the bottom of a swamp energetically. I'd got 2 children. I never imagined that I would end up as a single parent twice, and both men that I fell in love with when I was having one of these children became drug addicts. One became a heroin addict, one became a crack addict. It was very strong, and if I look at that moment, culturally, my poor Lebanese and Indian parents, for me to suddenly be a single parent out of wedlock back in those times, that was definitely cutting the edge of what they would have ever been in. And I knew that I had fallen, and I had prayed to God to please help me to hold my hand and come out of this place where I'd fallen. And very soon after that, a friend of mine that was watching me, my self-made misery, she offered for me to have a session with. She said, "Look, I want to pay for you to have a session. I can either pay for you to have a session with this psychic guy from Ireland called Neil, or with this person that is my chosen person, whose name I'm not going to reveal. I will say that very clearly. I'm sorry that it feels not right to do that. But she described him and said he's part Native American. He works with pyramids. He has a very deep connection to Tibet. And I just felt like pyramids, Tibet, Native American, yes, this feels really good. I felt this elevation in my body. And it took a few months to get a session with him. And I first met him on the 14th of January 1993, where I was having this session. And it was such a profound meeting for me. I felt, for the first time in my life, met at the level of the soul, when he looked deeply into my eyes, which was after the session, actually. So I went into this session where he was doing these beautiful Tibetan pujas, and I felt all this electricity run through my body, and wow, it was very profound. And that catalyzed the beginning of a very deep 30-year study into something called Ageless Wisdom and esoteric psychology, which is to understand our own spiritual evolution as well as planetary spiritual evolution. And I just love this study. It's very eclectic, and I'll go into that more. Yeah, so I was very, very grateful. And this journey with this profound teacher that I looked at to be a master, it also became a path of absolute purification, mentally, emotionally, physically. And that catalyzed what's understood to be a Kundalini awakening. So by 94 to 96, I went into this massive transfiguration within my body, clearing of deep karma. And yeah, it's been very strong, this path of purification, but it's shaped my life, because I can never, ever not see the aspects of myself that have impurity. When I say myself, I mean the conditioned imprints that I've inherited in this body, that has really helped me to shamanically be centered and strong, that I can support other people to go through this process themselves with compassion, with love, with understanding, because each of us, Deb, as you already know, we inherit the DNA from our ancestors, from our mother's bloodline, our father's bloodline, everything that was unconscious, not love, not kind, that was harsh or arrogant or superior or separative, blaming, judgmental, is imprinted conditioning, and that keeps us from being at one with the light of our spirit that's eternal and stainless purity. So it's been this profound, magnificent, and very deep and often uncomfortable journey, that to have somebody that could reflect back to you both your light and your shadow.
Yeah, wow. So studying with this teacher, as you did for as many years as you have, has your study just transpired, or has that person taught you everything that you are now teaching and offering to your students? Did it all come from that one particular source, or was it just the beginning there?
Thank you for that good question. I think the teacher points you to the direction of where the door is, always, a true teacher. So, no, the study is one's own self-realization. So these teachings run across the teachings of the Sufi path, Christianity, the Hindu Vedic path, the Buddhist path, and I've worked also extensively with plant medicines for 20 years, so I've definitely received a lot of indigenous wisdom from the earth and the elders of the earth, the earth keepers as well. So to answer that, ultimately, and I really see that this is where my relationship with the outer teacher has just recently closed, is because what we're all working towards is a direct communion with the One. And in a way, that's what a lot of the current massive, unprecedented awakening is about. That people are realizing that they, in so many ways, can't trust the outer teacher because there's been so much corruption. From the Catholic Church to every lineage, ultimately. Now, that doesn't mean that the lineages don't have value and beauty, but a lot of the living truth was concretized. When we look back into the previous age, the age of Pisces, when things become indoctrinated, they become often stale. And ultimately, all of our awakening has to happen through self-realization, which means that we have to deepen our relationship and connection to the source of all creation, to align ourselves to that source. And so, yeah, I have finally, I would say, come to a new place of understanding that it's where I feel a very deeper sense of freedom and trust in my own capacity, in my own relationship with the Buddhas and the Bodhisattvas from the realms of Shambhala and all of the teachers that I have studied under for many, many lifetimes, and not just from Shambhala, but the teachings of the Christ. Because really, in truth, and don't get me wrong, since being very young, because I went to a Catholic school and I had a Hindu grandmother, and the nuns in my school were basically telling me that you can't go to heaven unless you go through the Jesus. And I would think about my grandmother and think, but she's really a good woman. She prays every day. She believes in Krishna and Radha and Vishnu, Shiva and Brahma. But she's a holy woman and lives harmlessly. I do not believe that what I'm being told here in the school, and they also didn't believe in reincarnation in my Catholic school. And I knew since being a very young child that I've had Tibetan lives and many previous lives, not my first time here on this earth. So I used to debate with the Catholic nuns in the school and was kicked out of my RE class, and eventually actually got A grade in my RE O level. But it made me study the Bible, both the Old Testament and the New Testament, since very young, in depth. And I'm so grateful for that, because I really wanted to understand, is this true? What is being understood in reality in this doctrine that has been formulated that actually isn't an esoteric understanding, it's a mundane understanding that's been quite manipulated. That's another story. However, all I wanted since being very, very young was to support and know that everybody can go into an elevated state in union with the One, which is actually termed as being in heaven.
You mentioned how you had a Kundalini awakening so early on in this new chapter of life. Could you maybe explain to the listener what does that feel like? What does that entail?
Well, it's one of my favourite subjects, and I do give quite a lot of talks on this because so many people are going through a Kundalini awakening right now. For a lot of people, if you don't understand anything about it, it can be really frightening. So I'm going to try and explain it simplistically, because it's very much about our spiritual evolution. For instance, hardcore Baptist Christians, for instance, would think that Kundalini awakening is the devil and dark. And actually it's not. It's really not. So let me try and put it in a way that everybody could understand it. So if we take that we're looking at our physical bodies, but actually we've got an etheric body and we've got major chakras, minor chakras, meridian system, nadi centers. We've got a light body and energy systems that are encoded with all the merit that we've accumulated through all our previous lifetimes. Good deeds, words, actions, selfless service, and high levels of practice, i.e. going and making offerings and blessings to the river and feeding the poor, or going outside of your family circumstances to give on a bigger level. The Buddhists would call that cultivating bodhicitta. In every lifetime, that energy goes somewhere. So how it's understood through Ageless Wisdom is all the energy from all your lifetimes are accumulated to become the light of your soul that is ever increasing if you've had the auspicious circumstances to be in service. And for instance, somebody that was beaten as a child and locked in a coal bunker and never given love, they could become a very big dominant bully and be very harmful. So they're not increasing the light of their soul in that lifetime. Another person might be born in absolute poverty and somehow elevate themselves through the power of their prayers and their offerings and their generosity and become somebody like Gandhi or whatever, just very, Mother Teresa. So every lifetime, we have this opportunity to cultivate energy, light, chi, prana, life force. And that energy, when we take a body, when we come back into form within this world, this dreaming, that energy is dormant in us until we've purified ourselves. Because imagine now somebody might come into a family where they were violated as a child or watched their father beat their mother, and they've got a lot of trauma in their body, but they might be a high being from a previous lifetime. So Kundalini should not and cannot arise until a person is stable within themselves to be able to hold the voltage of energy that arises. So what Kundalini in a simplistic way is the rising of the vital force that's stored at the base of your spine, which is called the sleeping serpent. And that for that energy to come to the crown of your head. And ultimately, it's a relationship between the mother and the father, the great mother, who's always working to be in absolute union with her consort, the great father, father of all creation. So it's a marriage. When Kundalini rises from the base of your spine and to the crown of your head, so you become like a fountain of toroidal consciousness, it's a sacred marriage that's happening within you that can only happen under various circumstances that A, you've pledged yourself to the service of all creation throughout eternity. B, that you are ready to be transformed, to clear and purify the karma that you've inherited in this physical body and previous lives. Because when that Kundalini, it's a fire. When the sleeping serpent starts to arise, it splits into two serpents, which is the red and the white channel, the Ida, the Pingala, the masculine, the feminine. So when they rise, they cross at each of the gateways, which are your chakras, to open you into different realms of consciousness till the mother can meet the father through the crown of your head, and then you get opened into their divine ecstatic union, which is like being in a cosmic orgasm. And so some people in the beginning of their Kundalini awakening, because for me it was a 2-year process, some people, if they don't have the harmlessness or the teachings or the understanding that you have to choose a path of being loving, kind, wise, and if you've come from a lot of trauma, when they're going through a Kundalini awakening, they can experience an enormous amount of shaking as it's releasing the trauma out of their body, and they can feel that they're going crazy, or it's really scary, it's physically painful. If you've got the attribute of previous lifetimes, deep understanding of meditation, so you can access absolute stillness and no fear for this force of energy, which happens to be connected to the light of your soul, that is made of electric fire, that you can let go into the electric fire because you're being animated. Every cell in your body is being penetrated with this sacred fire of you in union with the one. It's like enormous. So everybody yearns for that, because when you enter the realm of being in the cosmic orgasm of the mother and father's union, you just feel like, oh my God, I'm home. This is the ultimate highest bliss. And we're all yearning to be in union. Do you like my painting above? It's kind of conveys that. Where, it's like everybody's longing for that. They're longing for it with their lover. And yet we're also frightened of it. So life is this push-pull distraction from opening to the light of the soul. And evolution is when your soul becomes the expression through your personality, and you can radiate the light of peace. That's it in a nutshell. I could talk about that for 4 or 5 hours. I've got more about this on my own YouTube channel.
I love it. I mean, there are so many questions I could ask you right now. I do want to ask this though. When I hear the entirety of what you've just said, and I think of you in that moment with your 2 children at the beginning of this journey, having come face to face with a reality of, like you said, your beloved being a drug addict and that whole separation. Do you remember, was there one simple prayer that you put out there that you feel was answered?
I really love this question. I really am somebody that's the biggest advocate for the power of prayer, because all my prayers have always been answered. And it blows my mind, actually. The minute that we asked, I could almost cry at that thought, because I literally did. I prayed to the Creator. I said, please will you hold my hand and take me out of this? I knew I'd fallen. When I was 4 years old, I used to feel the Shakti life force energy, the electromagnetic current from the earth under my feet. I was born in 1963, so I asked, please can I take off my shoes? I don't want to walk with my shoes on, to my parents. We lived in Ealing. And my mother's Lebanese, she would hate that idea, and to walk down the road barefoot. But I used to hide my shoes. In those days, we were allowed to play out. And I remember one particular time going to the neighbours next door, where I had an ice lolly and I wanted to play with the children. They said, no, wait outside till you finish your ice lolly. And in this moment, I was I was waiting outside the gate, and it must have been a ley line, because I could feel a vortex of energy under my feet. And why I'm telling you this is, I was a deeply spiritual aware. I was deeply aware of energy and my connection to spirit since tiny. Age 7, walking to church, I remember actually being so aware of asking myself the question, is this the dream, or is the dream the dream? And when I got into church, I just cried. because I felt I've come to my father's house. I felt a set energy of sanctuary, sacredness. So to have got to where I went to in my 20s, in some way, I have compassion. I have absolute compassion, and I see the divine perfection in all of it, because I fell in love because I projected my wounds of my in loveness with my dad, who was a compulsive gambler, to men that were emotionally unstable, who weren't emotionally available to me. And because I was still in this thing of wanting to save them, because I wanted to save my dad, and it's all subconscious. But I then was in that frequency of vibration around drugs, which is, was so scary to me because it was such a disconnect from light of spirit. Thankfully, I've not got an addictive nature and didn't go into that form myself. I give deep thanks for that. But I was watching it and it was hurting so bad. And yet, the gift of it has been, Deborah, is that my life's work now is to help our young people in particular. I say young because I'm 61, but help the people, even though some of them are in their 40s now, who suffer with addiction, struggle with addiction, struggle because addiction is always about wanting to avoid the pain. It's putting a plaster on top of the pain. It's avoidance of pain and grief and all that sits. It's just wanting to plaster it and just be in that avoidance. So my life's work is actually to really help people to meet the pain and bring loving awareness without judgment to all of those places so that they can really make good choices for themselves and finally connect, because most addiction is based on the yearning to be connected to spirit. So I am grateful now, all these years later, to see everything was in its perfection. It's given me the strength to be all that I am. And of course, given that how many lifetimes I've made the Bodhisattva vow, it's a very deep vow to continue to incarnate as a human being for the sake of, to benefit all beings until they've reached their awakening. So I see that. Of course, I've gone and taken on one of the most difficult, challenging things, to become a mother 4 times without having that support so that I can really feel the pain, suffering within this world of our imbalance of not being in right relationship with our sexual energy in the first place because of that crazy sexual revolution that happened in the 60s. And that we went into relationships so unconsciously without really understanding soulful love and what right relationship is and the spiritual commitment to bring in a child consciously. And I have to say, oh my God, I have felt so much shame, pain, guilt, sadness, and grief for years of just thinking, why did I not have the spiritual wisdom for my children to be able to give them what they all deserved, to have that balance of having a loving, present, wise and good father like your father or my father, even though he was an gambling addict. He was a beautiful man that cooked us lovely meals, etc., etc. So but I see how hard that was, but also how this has supported me to grow and to be able, through the power of prayer, interestingly, help to change this for the next 7 generations through watching like my grandchildren and the beauty of their lives, what's unfolding. So everything can be healed, but we've just come through a massive amount of unconsciousness as a race, and we're all in this together.
Oh, I mean, I could just sit and listen for the next 4 hours and record, but I must ask you, if I may, the next question. I know you've referenced there your beautiful grandchildren that live with you, but can I ask you, the place that you've chosen for these three things, that special place in your life that you've chosen. Tell the listeners where it is.
It's actually Glastonbury. Glastonbury, which is considered esoterically and spiritually as the heart chakra of the earth, the outer heart chakra, Avery being the inner. I moved here, believe it or not, in 1994. I never imagined coming to live in Glastonbury. It was not at all something from my left brain mind. All the good things that have ever happened in my life came as a download that was not through planning, manipulation, or mind. It's me listening internally to my body just showing me. It's like I woke up one morning and was shown I need to move here. Now, it wasn't even like because I'd only been once before, and actually it was with this teacher, and I knew its spiritual value here, but I didn't think to myself like I didn't think it was beautiful or something. I don't even understand how I got here, but I did. 1994 with 2 bags of white clothes, 2 children, a car that somebody lent me. And I've been here since. Even my parents moved here. And at the time, my son, who was 13, at that time, he's 40 now, said, listen, you can't have made us move from he was about 11 at the time, you can't make us have moved from London to live in Glastonbury and not go to the Glastonbury Festival. So I was very blessed. We got free tickets and we did go because I lived in Pilton at the time. But it was an amazing spiritual pilgrimage. And in that first few years, I was on a spiritual sabbatical where I'd get up at 4 a.m, be in meditation. I'd cut off a lot of my personality life. I really came down and in and really started to understand what telepathy is all about. It was amazing. It was absolutely amazing. I've had a wild and incredible life in Glastonbury, from having an amazing cake business that I created from when I was so broke as a single parent. And I just don't know. I went from having a high, incredible career in clothing from London, really out there with my clothes in Vogue, doing breakfast TV as a consultant, styling people, doing parties for people like Prince and Spike Lee's movies being released. Wild night. I used to love clubbing to reggae all night, and then suddenly I'm here in this tiny place, very noticeable with my black children, single parent, in a very middle class kind of, I don't know, I definitely stuck out like a sore thumb. And I'm so grateful for it. I just literally came back from Spain a couple of days ago, and from the beautiful hot weather. I travel a lot with my work and I love my work and love everything actually. But when I come home, to feel the energy here, it's my soul sanctuary. I'm so grateful for all the people that have come on pilgrimage to this land for lifetimes. They say that Jesus walked this land, and it's very, very sacred here.
Beautiful. And of course, that we've all watched recently the festival of Glastonbury Festival 2024, and it just never ceases to amaze me how much joy, love, peace, freedom is spread across those 4-5 days by so many hundreds of thousands of people. So, and you get to live there. And you have your grandchildren with you, which is beautiful.
It's so true. Do you know what? Somebody sent me a photograph. I haven't even talked to my grandchildren about this, but my son, his beautiful wife, Louise, and my grandchildren were photographed at Glastonbury Festival in the Guardian paper. And there's a really beautiful photo of them. And I feel very blessed. Like, again, I could have never imagined that I'm living such a beautiful dream that my son, his wife, And my grandchildren, my two granddaughters, live in an apartment downstairs. They've got their own kitchen, bathroom, and living room in the garden, and they can come up. In fact, this morning, how nice is this? My 7-year-old granddaughter came upstairs, got into bed with me at 6:30, and then wanted me to buy her something on my phone. And I said, "What is it? What is it that you want me to buy?" She said, "A pretend ice cream set," something like that. So actually, I've got to remember to do that. But what a gorgeous thing in my life that I could just have that lovely cuddle this morning.
Oh, I love it. Well, as someone who also knows and loves Glastonbury so dearly, I mean, I met the father of my daughter at the festival. I really love and honour that land. So thank you, Glastonbury. Okay, let's, if we may, now go on to your third thing, the treasured possession. So I asked my guests, if you were stripped of all your beautiful belongings and you could take just one thing with you that meant the world to you, what would it be? What possession have you chosen and why?
I have to smile because a big part of my training is to never be attached to a possession. And I would say that I'm definitely not attached to the possession, but I will share this with you because this is it's a cosmic knot, and it's very, very sacred, and people will see that theme running through my life, my logo, etc. But it's not my logo, it's way beyond that. This was gifted to me for my 60th birthday, and it's got diamonds, and it was beautifully designed from my friend Ruth, who is one of the founders of a jewellery company called Zoe and Morgan. That sounds like an advert, but it is. They did it for me. They're very kind. And basically, why it's so precious to me, partly because my friends all contributed to buy it and have it made for me, but it's much deeper than that. I've been very graced in this life to have so many profound mystical spiritual visions and experiences. And back in 1994, during this Kundalini awakening, at one particular point, I drove to Scotland with my two of my children. Then I've got 4 now, and I arrived, and we were staying in a castle, and it wasn't like a posh castle, but it was an old Scottish castle, and I was in this tartan sort of section, and I laid down after an 8-hour drive, and I started to experience my whole body begin to sort of tremor and shake and fill with electricity. And I went into that experience of like being in a vision state where I'm traveling up through this sacred geometry, up like through an elevator into a different dimension of consciousness. And then I experienced my body filled with this enormous energy, bliss, and high voltage. And I experienced one hand being held by one being and the other being. I couldn't look from left to right, but they sensed that they were very tall beings, which I think are angelic beings. And what they were showing me was this cosmic knot, or in Tibetan it's called eternal knot. They were showing me this. It was about 4 feet across, 4 feet wide, and it was about maybe 10 feet away from me. And it was filled with energy and light, but inside this cosmic knot were these living letters of fire, which were like rotating in gold. And they looked like they could have been Sanskrit or Hebrew or even, I don't know, some mystical language, but it was a living language of light. I definitely understood that. And they were showing me that I could read it. And so there were lots of these letters, but they were like in little groups together that were like paragraphs. And as I read them, I experienced that I am reading this intergalactic living language of light. Blew my mind. It's not like I have ever had an experience like that before, apart from one where I experienced that actually we are all, if you took the story, I must say this because it's really deep, if we were to take the story out of the way of our life, i.e. all the drama, all the sadness, the grief, the happiness, and the themes, and we just looked at ourselves as energy, then what was revealed is that in reality, we are actually the living language of light. Each one of us, we are just moving as a living language of light, traveling through time and space. So that's very deep. That's not probably for today. But coming back to this, I had never seen one of these in this life. So when I was in the vision, what I experienced was thinking, oh, that looks like it could be Celtic, it could be Tibetan, it could be Hindu, I don't know. But very shortly after that, I went to the Tate exhibition of the Tibetan Tate exhibition. Suddenly I'm around all these beautiful monks and making these mandalas, and all the amazing Tanka paintings that they have were filled with this. And then I did my research on it, and now I actually understand that what this means, if somebody is to give another person this symbol, this everlasting cosmic knot, what it actually means is a spiritual commitment to that person's well-being through time and space, through eternity. So I love this so much. It means everything. So my clothes business, for instance, so I design clothes. It's on all my labels, so that I'm making a spiritual commitment to that person's well-being and to try to be as absolute in impeccability, integrity with everything that I do, in everything that I give. So that's why I love it.
So I need to tell the listener, just because we missed it at the beginning, this is a very special necklace that Rita has introduced. So the cosmic knot has been made into a necklace with diamonds in it. And you said, and it was gifted by friends for your 60th birthday. Is that right?
Yeah, that's correct. Thank you for, I got a bit esoteric there. I love it that you grounded that out.
No, not at all. Not at all. And for anyone who watches this on YouTube, they'll get to see the actual piece that you're wearing today, and it is absolutely beautiful. And when you introduced it, then I remembered, God, that's on all of Rita's newsletters, all of your emails, all of your branding. It's there, and now I know its significance. What a lovely choice! Beautiful. Oh, Rita, this has been so enjoyable. I hope you've enjoyed doing it.
I have. I've really been grateful to share this, and if I can benefit anybody in their spiritual wake up, then I'm even more happy.
Well, no, you most certainly do that effortlessly. Thank you so much for being a guest. It's been really lovely to have you on. Thank you.
Thank you, Debs.
And there we have it. A huge thank you to our guest this week, and also to you, our listener. I am so very grateful for the time that you take to tune in and listen each week. So, if you have enjoyed this podcast and would like to hear more episodes, then please press subscribe or follow now. Until next week, take care. Goodbye.